Newsline with Faraz Shaukutali.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome to Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo and broadcasting on TV1, part of the Capital Maharaja Group. And this morning, joining us on the set is Professor Sirimal Abiratna from the economist from the University of Colombo. Very good morning to you, Professor.
Good morning to you.
And we are also joined by that legal eagle, Mr. Hemanta Surya. No stranger to the set. Very good morning to you, Mr. Surya.
Good morning, Farah.
And thank you for being here and
Thank you
hopefully
for
telling
inviting
us
us,
what you think of the budget. But we'll ask Professor Sirimal, since he's the expert in these matters, what's the budget doing? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it ugly? Is it moderate? What is it?
There are steps that have taken forward to go forward as well as backward. That's how I see the budget. There are good things about, because when we compare it with the previous budget, that's the last year budget, and that was very much unrealistic one because it did not reflect the economic reality of the country. But this one, a step forward, so that compared to that one, it is better. But of course there are a lot of anomalies also, which I see as, the good things about the budget is that the budget has addressed some fundamental issues of this country.
Can you name one?
One is the high debt.
Right.
And another one is, of course, we call it revenue deficit, which is the government tax revenue is not sufficient even to cover the day-to-day expenses of the government, that is we call it recurrent.
Right.
And so these kind of issues have been addressed in the budget, but whether at the end of the year they are going to be realistic or not, that's a different issue. And at the same time it has also addressed some issues like supporting investment, export growth and so on. But at the same time it has also brought about certain old evils like welfare measures that we cannot sustain in the long run.
Right.
So those kind of mixed things are there in the budget.
Those are more political than...
I think some of them are, I think they think that it is politically correct, but that is only in the short run. But when we comes to 2-3 years later, when we come to that time, we will realize that they are not actually even politically correct.
How important is, when one is creating the budget and so on, imposing taxes, how important is it to keep in mind the ability to pay of the person imposed, or the tax imposed, the ability of that person to pay, and the realistic ability of the government to collect that tax?
Yes. I think in this area, government is facing a dilemma, because our taxes comparatively they are very high. Our commodity taxes are very high and our income taxes are also very high now. But the problem is the government's tax collection is quite low compared to the government expenditure. So that's the dilemma. And our taxes are high, but our tax revenue is low, not because that we are paying low taxes, but taxes are high, as I said, because not everybody is paying taxes. That's the problem.
I see. So I think it's 1,800 billion or 1.8 trillion is the projected tax revenue. Projected tax revenue.
Projected tax revenue.
How much is it, what percentage is likely to be actually collected?
I'm not sure about the exact number, but our history has shown that always the budgetary projections falling short of the
actual collection.
the targets.
And we were discussing earlier, before the cameras came on live, with Mr. Wanakul Surya, the imposition or the raising of the minimum fine. Rupees 2,500 motor fine.
Now, when I listen to Professor Sirimal, I feel that this budget has, is two-way. There's some forward-looking proposals. Now, this fine of 2,500 rupees, when you look at it, as a layman, you might think, yes, it's a very good thing. The traffic, the three-wheeler drivers, the bus drivers, they tend to violate the laws and they must be punished. But in practical aspect, when these fines are imposed, not only for traffic offences, but even for other fines, there's a tendency for corruption to build on. There is always a possibility, it is very common for people to go and negotiate with the police officer and pay a lesser fine. And also the 2,500 is very, very high, because average daily income of a driver is less than 2,500 rupees. So therefore, I mean, if he has to pay a fine of 2,500, I mean, the whole transport industry, and then the three-wheelers about 1,000, 1,200, whole transport industry will come to a standstill. So there must be, we must also commend the government for having thought about the violations of traffic laws and various things. At the same time, we must also think about the practical aspect of collecting this money and whether this will give rise to additional corruption. Corruption will grow and the government revenue will never be utilized.
What do you say, Professor, about this?
I have a different view on this subject, because the corruption grows when the law enforcement is very weak.
Right.
Not because our taxes or our fines are too high.
Right.
And I think when we look at the better transport system and better disciplinary management in the world, in countries where they have good systems, we also find that they have very high fines for breaking the road rules and indisciplinary reckless driving on the roads. And in fact, I remember once because this is connected to many other economic areas of the country. I remember I was checking one day about, for something else, the tourism industry. You know, the tourists who are coming to Sri Lanka and to any other country, when they go, they get their information about the inside things of the country. So there are websites. And one thing I check is the, I think, Commonwealth Tourist Advisory Services. And one important thing that they highlight is be careful on the road. They are telling the tourists who are coming to this country, because our road discipline is quite bad. And one way of handling that road discipline is actually raising the fine. But raising the fine and then it leads to corruption, these are two different issues.
But isn't
it leads to corruption because our law enforcement is very weak.
Yes, but when just because we have higher fines isn't actually going to help the police. Isn't it one of enforcement that the police should be on the ball and making sure that drivers are following the rules? But raising the taxes or the fines so much higher, I've just come back from an area where it's, let's say, it's economically challenging. Now, people there were telling me, some of them telling me, that they're struggling as it is to find 500 rupees to pay for a class in English or whatever, and 2,500 rupees is a huge amount in the rural mass of this country.
That's right.
And an inability to pay that will then result in them being remanded, and then thereby swelling the numbers already overcrowded of our prison system.
Yeah, I think the problem here is actually it is a fine for violating the road rules. So if you are,
but one has to be realistic, surely, about the ability of the people to pay.
Yeah, but that is only if they violate it. And if you take it as a license fee to violate the road rules, then of course I agree with your point. But if you take it as a fine, then I don't agree.
Yes,
my position for us that Professor Siriman Bhattacharya said made a very important point. Law enforcement is weak. That we have to accept. The law enforcement is very, very weak. That is why there is corruption. Now, if you go to the web,
but we must accept it. But we must fight it.
Yeah, no. If you go to the Facebook, you can see number of photos taken of police officers taking bribes.
That's right.
It's a very, very common thing. This happened now for instance, if you think of a fine, look at the fine, look at the penalties for holding, for selling heroin. If you possess more than 2 grams of heroin, then the punishment is death.
Right.
But what has happened? Has the import or export of heroin got reduced? Has the consumption of heroin got reduced? No. It has spread all over, irrespective of all those stringent laws. Why? The law enforcement is weak, and they find ways and methods of subverting the law and carrying out their trade. So here in this case, with the drivers, the three-wheel drivers, the taxi drivers, the ordinary drivers, even today there are fines that can be imposed to prevent any violation of road rules. Just because you impose 2,500, I don't think the people will be always careful in order not to violate. 2,500 is not a reason for you to not to. If you are violating, you will violate irrespective of any fine, because you feel that you can only talk to the police and get out of this situation. So my position is that it's not practical, and the transport industry, the taxis, the three-wheelers, the buses, they cannot afford to pay this. And then what will happen is, not the revenue of the government, but the revenue of the police officers will swell.
But isn't it, shouldn't we set an example? Shouldn't the President and the Prime Minister, for example, shouldn't they set an example before they set the budget?
Yeah.
They should surely set the ball rolling. After all, people are looking up to them.
That's right. I think I completely agree with that point. The example should come from the top.
Yeah.
And then the others will follow it, actually. That's how it should happen always. And this has not been there for some time. I think in that area also we have done a very not that good in the past. So that if we take this law enforcement issue, and I think in many of the government agencies, ministries and departments, and the role that they are supposed to play, they are not playing actually. That is because actually we don't have that kind of for example, if I take a ministry, the transport ministry or any other ministry, they should have a plan. Okay, this is where we are going, and this during this 2-year period, 3-year period, and this is how we improve our area of responsibilities.
But traditionally, you know, when you look at government expenditure, the expense of the foreign ministry is very high indeed, and when you and you know, the Prime Minister's office, for example, has got so many people, and it appears to us from the outside looking in that these are very high and not sustainable.
That's right.
When we have, is it really a must that the, for example, the governor of the central bank stays in the Bel Air Hotel or in an ultra luxury place, when a country like ours would probably justify a local holiday inn? I don't know, or something where a room costs $100 or $200. Is it a must for them to go and stay in all these plush places and bill the people? That's what it is. They're billing the people.
Yes. I think you have a point, because I don't know about I don't have that much information about these hotels and their expenses. And if I have full information, and if I compare it with some other countries and the living standards of the normal people, and then I can actually come with a very concrete idea about it. But I understand the point, because our government expenditure, even in this budget, is going out of control because of the wastage and unproductive expenses of the government. And that is a very clear thing that we need to handle, and there should be a discipline in this particular area. The reason is actually in economics we very well understand the problem of government finance. Now when we earn our money doing something productive, and when we spend it, we are very careful because it is our money. But when somebody has the right, legitimate right to spend someone else's money,
Yeah. Yeah.
do they have the same concern there?
Yeah.
Because the government is an institution in principle which does not earn a single cent.
Yeah.
Everything that the government spends is others' money, people's money. So
Exactly.
in that case, actually government has to be very careful to get the every rupee that they spend. They need to consider, even personally, every member has
Yeah.
to consider, I am spending people's tax money. Actually, that's why in many countries, everywhere where they mention, we are spending your tax money. We are spending your tax money. So it is not only on the road, even personally, every minister, every member of parliament, every public office, sector official, and they should think that we are spending others, someone else's money, so that the return to every rupee that we spend should come back to the economy.
Well, yes, I think there should be a special law, new law, that holds people, government officials, responsible for some. We can call it the OPM Act. Not opium, you understand, but OPM, Other People's Money Act, the national money. Because they're spending this as though there's no tomorrow. And it appears to me that their plan, the plan of these politicians and legislators, is to make more and more money. That's the only plan they have. More and more money for themselves. And so hopefully, one of these days, the President may direct his Minister of Finance to do what I call a Modi, and do a demonetization program. To bring in all the black money, which has its benefits, but also disadvantages in India. But Hemanta, what is the state? Now you talk about the police need to enforce the traffic laws, or all the laws actually.
I believe the police are
And
not,
just raising the taxes is not
yeah,
is
I
not the
believe the
answer.
police are not enforcing laws mainly because the police feels that the junior police officer, the constable, who are very poorly paid, they don't have living quarters, they have nothing. They no overtime, they work 24 hours a day sometimes. So they have to, then they emulate their bosses. And when you feel that everybody down the line is corrupt,
Yeah.
you think that there is nothing wrong in collecting few hundred rupees for your expenses. So the whole concept, then the top people in the police fields, look at the politicians, look at our masters, what are they doing? They are making money. So the whole concept of corruption has eaten into the body politic, and is disintegrating, and it's like a cancer which is spreading all over. So I do not know. For instance, look at this. I'm repeating this. The bond scam. The whole world, the entire Sri Lanka is talking about bond scam, like the whole world is talking about Trump's victory. Now what have we done? So what is the example we are setting? Now say there was a famous minister, junior minister, who had been speaking so loudly about anti-corruption. What happened? He went to the duty-free shop and bought a television, and then went out, and the television broke down, and he had to bring back, and they had to pay 8,000 rupees duty. So now now there you know that few years ago in Australia, a minister who took a radio, say when the transistor radio, into Australia, had to lost his job. Here, the people who talk about anti-corruption, people who say that I am here to rein in all the rogues, buys television set and goes out. So therefore, the law enforcement, don't blame the poor constables, don't blame the poor police officers. I know their living condition, they are appalling. They are the worst paid people in Sri Lanka. They work day and night, but at the same time, when they feel that there is no law enforcement in the country, what do we do? And I think before that, I think Professor Rimal said a very, very important thing about the budget. Now I would like to ask Professor Rimal if you have time. Now all these budgets are temporary measures for 1 year. There is no logical plan. There is no plan for the future. Now we earn 1.8 trillion rupees and we pay the debt.
Yes.
And if you do not collect the money, I mean, I'm shocked to hear this from a learned professor like my friend. And what will happen? I mean, what happened to Greece, and what happened to Italy, what happened to other countries might happen to Sri Lanka.
Our rating, by the way, Sri Lanka's rating, I think is B plus negative outlook. Same as what Greece was the time that we bought those wonderful models.
We are playing with time. Very soon, the whole thing will collapse, because we also as people do not want to pay taxes. We are lotus eaters. We don't want to have all the benefits. I mean, in America, with such a huge country, they are now fighting Obamacare. They say it's too expensive. Now we give free health, we give free education, and then we want more things free. I think we also have bound and duty to help the government to pay the taxes, and also ensure the government has a long plan. It's not 5 year, not 1 year plan, at least 5 year plan, so that even the most unpopular measures can be taken up at the very inception, so that in 5 years' time we can recover. I think.
Yes, I think a good point you brought, Ms. Hemant, about this Greece case.
Yeah.
I think there are many similarities between Greece and Sri Lanka. Greece also, there are dissimilarities as well, because Greece is a rich country, and Sri Lanka was not that so. One important thing is that Greece government also played with public money. And they also provided a lot of handouts to people, and also borrowing, and not on the basis of taxes, but when the tax is not enough, they continue to borrow, borrow, hiding that to the rest of the Eurozone. And what happens is now, at the moment, when the Greece collapsed, during that time their debt is more than 600% of their tax revenue. Sri Lanka's debt is also, if you calculate it as a percentage of the government tax revenue, it is 600%. So we and Sri Lanka and Greece, we are both at the same level now.
Oh, goodness me.
But it doesn't mean that Sri Lanka is going to collapse like Greece also, because it depends on the investors' confidence, and there the investors realize that Greece is not going to pay our money back, so that they started selling their bonds, and so that created the whole issue. And in Sri Lanka, still there is a confidence among the investors that our money, we will get it back. And when they lose that one, as you said, the rating is one indicator that they look at. When they lose, investors lose their investor confidence. Sri Lanka is also going in the same direction. Everything will be over.
Everything will be over. Gosh, that's enough to shock us into silence, almost. But Hemant, what do you think is the legal man? What do your colleagues in the legal profession say? They are usually better off than the average public, okay? So on that premise,
but,
what do you all say?
I'm very, very sorry to say, even in our profession, the percentage of people who pay taxes are very, very low. I mean, are we as the profession, if you do not pay the taxes from the income that we earn, and if we default by not declaring our income, at least not even the entire income, at least 50% of income, then I believe that we have nothing to say about this. You know, we are not responsible profession. Where I believe, as Professor said, we also must accept the fact that the government is giving so much of handout like free education, free medicine, I mean whatnot, and then we expect all that free without doing anything. We don't want to participate in this whole thing. So that is a very, very selfish thought. And I think the same thing about doctors. Now see the amount of money the doctors earn. Are they being taxed? There was a proposal during Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa's time to send the tax officers to hospitals and collect the money. What happened? They all opposed it, and nothing happened. So I mean, the huge, large businessmen, they don't pay taxes. They don't pay the taxes. I mean, no one declares 100% of their income, but at least they sometimes show, like Trump, they have sometimes show losses and they don't pay at all. So the government is also in utter predicament. They don't have the money. They don't know how to spend their money, how to pay for their bills, how to pay their debt, and also if you all the money we collect, I don't think no government has ever collected all the projected revenues. They don't collect. How are you going to pay the debt? Then how are you going to pay? How are you going to, if you can't pay the debt, then how are you going to pay for the other expenses? So naturally, now there must be, I think, a process in which I think the Minister Finance started a program where they try to advertise and tell the people, right?
Yes, I mean they do. They are taking out advertisements and so on.
No, whatever they must try to educate. Like now we must have people like Professor Balwata, who will tell the people independently. Forget about everything. We are not politicians. Forget about tell the people the truth about this whole thing. You know, this country can the country sustain like this? Can the country go on like this? You know, the 2,500 rupees fine is a minuscule. You know, it should be ignored. But we cannot go on like this because we cannot be dependent on the government to give us everything free. Everything free, and if you don't get that, we fight for it, and then we don't want to do anything in return.
But right now, people who are given permits have the right, but it's being challenged in court, to sell their permit on.
Yeah.
But that's fine. But shouldn't they pay some tax on the amount that they've gained, on the capital gain? Because they seem to be selling it is fine.
But my position is, the whole problem is the politicians they don't set an example. No, as the professor said, what about the expenses? Tremendous expenses. No, and can we afford this? Can you, as you say, can you afford to live in 5-star hotels? I know I don't want to mention this. When some foreign dignitaries go abroad, they choose the best hotel, and sometimes you will not believe the cost of the hotel for a day
is astronomical.
It's about 25,000 euros for a day.
Just from tax money.
That's
25,000 euros into 163. How much is that for a day? And and they don't. I mean, that is only for one room.
No, foreign minister.
That is only for one room. For one room. What about the 10 or 15 people who come and occupy the same room? I mean, they have absolute contempt for people of this country, because they know whatever they do, they'll vote for them, and so therefore they think that they have license to rob.
I think if this country has a discipline in spending tax money, we can save a lot of problems of the budget.
The classic example is Singapore, I believe. In Singapore, we are talking about foreign ministry. How many embassies do Singapore is one of the most powerful countries in the world, one of the richest countries in the world. How many embassies they have? They don't have. They have what? Less than 25 embassies all over the world. So they don't want to spend money. They don't want to spend money. They are very, very careful about spending people's money.
So we need to really have it more and more. We think about it. We need to have a special act, an OPM Act, the Other People's Money Act. Professor Abhiratnam, thank you very much for being on Newsline. We appreciate your presence.
Thank you very much.
And as always, grateful thanks to you for your wonderful opinion, candid as it always is. Thank you, Mr. Vanakula Surya. And thank you. Same time, same place, Monday through to Friday. And if you're up earlier, you can join Bandula Jayasekara on Pathika at 6 o'clock in the morning, also from Monday to Friday. In the meantime, take care, have a wonderful weekend, a week ahead, and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.